This is Kobo Elipsa 2e. It's a 2023 released e-reader/digital notebook. It's advertised as a great tool for reading literature, making notes, and organizing thoughts. In this Kobo Elipsa 2e review, I'll go through this entire device, from what's inside it to my experience using it to its full capability. Is this the Kindle killer we've been looking for? Let's find out. My journey began with a good old Kobo Elipsa 2e unboxing. Once I unpacked everything, I was presented with an e-reader, with a stylus, and a USB-C charging cable. In standard e-reader fashion, you gotta buy a protective cover separately. The device itself is pretty massive. With its 10.3-inch screen, it's big enough to be a tablet, but it's still surprisingly sleek and light, weighing a bit over 13 ounces. After you launch it for the first time, Kobo Elipsa requires a straightforward setup. Nothing complicated. I have to say that it's much easier than using a Kindle. There's no need to create or log into an Amazon account, so there's no hassle. As for the price, I'll be straight with you, it's not the most affordable device. It costs around $400 USD on Amazon. That said, this is very close to the price of the Kindle Scribe, the main competitor for the Kobo Elipsa 2e. To that end, what does this device offer to justify its high price? Because it doesn't have the handy excuse of the pricey brand name after all. Well, to start with, we have the e-ink touchscreen. Besides clocking in at over 10.3 inches, it's also completely glare-free and features an adjustable front light. I prefer to set it to warm tones when reading in dim light, but if you like to sit outside and enjoy your book with a cup of tea, the front light can be turned off completely. An integral part of the Kobo Elipsa setup is with its stylus, which features customizable buttons and a USB-C charging slot. I'm not a big fan of having to charge the stylus, and having the port always open is also undesirable. But when it comes to using it, there's really nothing to complain about. It's as comfortable as using a real pen with a sheet of paper. You know, like in the 1960s. When used for reading purposes, Kobo Elipsa supports 15 conventional e-reader and image formats, as well as Kobo's proprietary formats, mostly reserved for their audiobooks. And speaking of audiobooks, Kobo Elipsa supports Bluetooth for wireless headphones, but doesn't have a 3.5mm jack if you prefer classic sound devices. I also managed to borrow ebooks from a public library using Overdrive. It's a bit of a hassle to set up at first, but considering that sharing is completely free, I can deal with the inconvenience. If you're using multiple devices, you can sync your data through either Dropbox or Google Drive, which might come in handy if you run out of the 32 gigabytes of storage. Keeping some books in the cloud might be the only solution here, as you can't expand Kobo Elipsa storage by any other means. While Kobo Elipsa doesn't have a headphone jack or even an SD card slot, which some would call redundant anyway, I can't call its design or build shoddy. The surface is comfortable to hold, and it didn't slip from my sweaty hands even when I was outside reading in the Vegas sun. The screen is the only smooth part, but that's to be expected. According to the manufacturer, the device is made from 85% recycled plastics as well, so I'm willing to forgive it for feeling a bit cheaper than the Kindle Scribe. Now, I have a bit of a bias here regarding the size of Kobo Elipsa. It's not that comfortable to hold for long sessions, especially if you're used to smaller e-readers. That said, as long as you just put it on your knees and keep it steady with one hand, now that's perfection. But before I use this Kobo tablet review to rant about my reading experience, we have to get through Kobo Elipsa's interface. While the initial device setup is a cakewalk, the rest of the UI is not that polished in my opinion. With years of experience using e-readers, I was confident I could use Kobo Elipsa 2e without any issues, so I kind of skimmed over the basic guides on first launch. And what do you know, I completely regretted that decision after getting stuck in writing mode with the stylus, unable to erase my scribbles or even leave the home screen. So take my advice, read the tutorial messages, and once you do, the UX is as comfortable as it gets. That said, it still has some minor issues. When you're in the book, opening the settings menu just to change brightness or switch to dark mode feels a bit janky. It sometimes feels like the touchscreen is a bit unresponsive to my fingers, which could be an issue with them, not the e-reader, but I digress. I also don't like the Kobo Elipsa 2e doesn't let me look through the device's internal storage without connecting it to the PC. I figured it would just check whatever files I have downloaded at any moment, but it seems like that's no longer possible for e-readers. When it comes to dealing with Kobo's built-in eShop or web browser, I had no issues whatsoever. It's only the UI during reading that irritated me a bit. Speaking of reading, Kobo's e-ink screen is as good as always. The text on it is very clear, and if you're reading with natural light, it's no different from reading from paper. No extra strain on the eyes. At night, I really enjoyed using the dark mode paired with Kobo's warm front light. It felt significantly more comfortable than reading from a phone or tablet. I also adjusted fonts and text sizes a few times depending on how far from my eyes I wanted to keep the book. Once you get used to the UI, it's pretty easy to do. I do have to mention here that I had a bit of trouble loading my books into the Kobo Elipsa 2e. As an old school e-reader user, I thought simply dropping my FB2 files into the core folder on the device would be enough, but it wasn't. I had to use Calibre to upload my books into the device, and only then did they show up properly. Alright, now let's talk about the whole reason Kobo Elipsa 2e is presented as a competitor to the Kindle Scribe, the stylus and note-taking. I'll be upfront with you, I don't really get the appeal, but I tried my best to test it anyway. With the stylus in hand, I went to scribble in my favorite book and discovered a lot of neat things Kobo Elipsa 2e can do. For instance, I can pick parts of the text and look up definitions or unfamiliar words. This may come in super handy for obscure literature. And while I can add footnotes in books themselves, this is not simply the best e-reader for notes. The main use of the stylus is with Kobo's notebooks. Basically, I can create a new file using different templates and write down anything I want. It almost felt like writing in a classic notebook, pretty natural and comfortable. I also customized one of the stylus buttons to switch to the eraser immediately, so I could fix my shoddy writing whenever I made a typo. And even with my handwriting leaving a lot to be desired, Kobo Elipsa managed to translate it into typed text without butchering anything. Granted, this feature is unlikely to work if you're a doctor, but I think everyone else is going to have a nice experience. Overall, Kobo Elipsa 2e is a really neat e-reader. I used it mostly as such, and it is great for reading, especially if you disable Bluetooth and Wi-Fi so the battery lasts longer. If you need a digital notebook, 25 might not offer better options than Kobo Elipsa 2e. It works great. The stylus is easy to use, and the device converts all handwriting into typed text quite accurately. The general UI of the notebook part is also a bit more polished. That said, I still think that some parts of Kobo Elipsa are rudimentary, hence I haven't mentioned them at all. For instance, it has a web browser and even some games, but knowing e-ink screens, those will only make the screen wear faster, so I avoided those. At the end of the day, Kobo Elipsa 2e will fit the best for those who want to read books, learn something new by analyzing text, and leave their own notes alongside the words of the author. I'm going to keep using Kobo Elipsa 2e for a while, but I also have a few other e-readers to test, so looking forward to that. You can get Kobo Elipsa 2e yourself through this link on screen. Yeah, just click or tap it and you'll be able to get a good discount. If you have any questions left, my comment section is always open. I'll see you soon, so stay cool and keep reading.